You're listening to Crushing Classical, How to Thrive in Your Creative Career. I'm your host, Janet Ingle, oboist, entrepreneur, author, and business and creative coach for musicians. In today's podcast, I talk with Jenny Clift, a classically trained violinist and EFT tapping coach based in Madrid. She combines these two careers, and her favorite thing is helping others to unlock their potential and achieve tremendously more than they ever thought was possible. She's passionate about working with musicians, stage artists, and creatives from all over the world to help them achieve success, wealth, career fulfillment, and inner peace. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the show. My guest today, Jenny Clift, has experienced lots of stops and starts in her own musical career, so she feels strongly about helping others who've gone through similar things, like experiences with unsympathetic teachers, traumatic past lessons, auditions, competitions, etc., frustration over technical limitations and difficulties, struggles with confidence, self-doubt and lack of belief, or just the normal blocks and anxiety around auditions, competitions, job scarcity, money woes, performance stress, etc. But lots of us have these struggles and don't go on to create a business around helping others, so I just love hearing Jenny's story. In 2016, she wrote a book, The Music Inside, it's available on Amazon, about her experience of using EFT to boost her music career. She then trained as an energy psychology practitioner and a tapping into wealth coach and began building her coaching business alongside her musical career. I'm really interested in exploring how musicians build their own unique and fascinating portfolio careers, and I loved talking to Jenny. First of all, she's a brilliant coach and a really fun human. And second of all, I think her journey is incredibly relatable to us all. Third, I admire anyone who can make their own creative solutions be helpful to others and in fact turn that help into an entire career. If you spend more than a few minutes a month on billing and scheduling for your teaching studio, you might consider Fonz. It's an all-in-one platform to help service-based businesses, like music teachers, in fact, it was originally created by a music teacher, to manage their clients and their billing without stress and hassle. It helps you to up-level your presence and show up to your clients and students as the professional that you are. You get a free 2-week trial with the link that you'll find in the show notes. And if you find this interview with Jenny Clift valuable or interesting, make sure you share it with your own network. Let people know by leaving a review on the podcast, by sharing it on social, by screenshotting it and tagging me and Jenny on Instagram or on Facebook. Jenny Clift, welcome to Crushing Classical. I'm so excited to speak with you.
Yay, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to talk to you, Janet.
So, Jenny, you're an EFT tapping coach, and you and I have worked together actually a number of times, and I've had you come in to speak to my groups, and there's always so much value in this. And when I try to describe to somebody else what it is we're doing, I'm like, so then we hit our eyebrows, and then we hit the sides of our heads, and they look at me like I'm absolutely bonkers. And yet, the value that you bring is so clear to me. So I want to talk about all of that.
Okay.
Could I start just a little bit earlier though? And can I just
Absolutely.
ask you, I believe you started life as a violinist. Was that always your plan? Were you intending to be a performer, first of all?
Well, not always, no. I started the violin itself actually very late as for a violinist. I started when I was 13. Before then I'd played the piano. My mum was a pianist as well, and sang. And a lot of music in my family, but I discovered the violin or whatever it was. I can't even remember why I was drawn to it when I was at boarding school, and there was a violin teacher there, and I started playing and immediately absolutely loved it. So, but it was a late start, which although I got on fast and I worked very hard, so in some ways I already knew music theory, I could read music and all the rest of it, but I think later on, I had sort of issues with confidence and not feeling good enough and comparing myself to others, which I think is pretty common. But I think maybe that even started with starting so late, starting at 13. And so already I was kind of comparing myself unfavorably with, people who started earlier. But anyway, I started and quite quickly decided I really want to perform and be a performer. I remember when I was coming out of boarding school, and I took an extra year to get my violin playing up to standard to get into music college. But before I left, the music teacher there sort of said to me, "Are you sure you shouldn't take a teaching degree instead of a performing degree?" So being sensible, I kicked right against it. No, what I want to do is perform and everything. I did not want to be a teacher. And so I did get into music college and everything. So yeah, and then it all went downhill from there, basically. Yeah. Me and
it's
my
so interesting.
teacher. Yeah. That's another.
It's so interesting. You're describing these mindset issues that already were cropping up for you back in high school and when you were so young, but so many musicians struggle with all of these things. So I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you. Keep going.
No, and I'm glad you did, because it's totally true. And on the one hand, there is this, everything going on, all the doubts and insecurities, but there is that drive inside of one, just say, and the amount of times with the violin, Janet, that I thought, I wish it would just leave me alone, but it keeps on coming back. And so understanding that inner need, if you like, to perform or to play or to be somehow connected with music, with the instrument and everything, is just it just won't leave you alone, kind of thing. So anyway, but having said that, I went to music college, had not a good relationship with my music teacher. And I think about it, it's funny now as a coach, and it makes me laugh, because as a coach, a lot of, especially training and everything, is all about finding a fit. Are you a fit with your client and everything? And basically the idea is, if you're not, then you shouldn't coach them. And I just think back to my days at music college and think, I wish that had been a thing, that we'd have had, a couple of lessons or a probation period, and then said, you know what, this is not working for either of us, let's see if we can find you someone else. But it just wasn't a thing. I mean, and we struggled.
I think I was way past college the first time anybody said to me, your education is up to you, and put in my mind that I could have at any point during my college education said how I needed it to be, or said what I needed, or stated what was actually what would actually have been useful to me, because that didn't cross my mind when I was 18, 19, 20, 22 years. It never crossed my mind that there was any agency that I could take in my own education. We're not taught that if your teacher is not good for you, there's an alternative. The world is crawling with violinists that could teach you in a way that actually works for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and my way of dealing with it was just pushing through. I should be practicing more, and which was true. I should, because before I went to college, I had a violin teacher. She's American but living in London. I loved her. She was so amazing, and I was practicing 8 hours a day, literally. I mean, you can do that with a violin, and because you don't have to make reeds, as an oboist. But she. And it was just amazing. I was so inspired, so motivated. And I got to music college and I was meant to be doing the same. And it just all shut down. And I remember, I would go to violin lessons. I had one session. Actually, this is funny considering what we were talking about before, but I had one violin lesson where I rang my teacher and said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, I can't go because I've just had a car accident." And I remember being it was a little bump. I was fine, but I was so happy to have an excuse not to have it. I mean, the alarm bells should have been ringing loud and clear, but we just kind of plugged on, and it was, not good. So
absolutely, because we're not taught to question authority, and we're not taught to anything.
No. And he was the maestro, and he was and it was all down to the student to fit in and try, but I didn't succeed. I did scrape through my diploma, but then I gave up the violin for 8 years after that. I just walked away, and I literally fled the country. I left England, kind of, what the heck do I do with my life? Because all I thought I was going to do was the violin. But I came to Spain, where I now live, teaching English, and that's what I did for the next 10 years. And I never said to anyone that I was a violinist. I had my violin with me, but I didn't play for 8 years. So it's just crazy. Yeah.
That's so interesting. And if you're listening to this conversation, like, so many of us have had experiences that are similar, like feeling discouraged, feeling like we weren't being supported in the way we needed to be supported, feeling like everyone else around us was better. I've talked to plenty of people who have given up the instrument, and like it what's my point here? It makes me sad that was the case for you. And I know what comes next in this story. Like, I know this is a success story because I know you and I love you. So I can't wait to hear what happens next. But just to point out, if you, the listener, are also in a place of discouragement, of feeling lost, of feeling like, ugh, I can't even do this, I don't even want to try. Like, there are alternatives. There are ways to move forward from that. Okay, Jenny, what happened next?
Yeah, no, and absolutely, there are alternatives there, and there are people you can reach out to. So what happened was, I was living in different places in Spain, and eventually I came to Madrid and started going to concerts, which was a big mistake, as an audience member, because I would sit in the audience going, oh my God, I don't want to be here in the audience. I want to be up on stage playing. It was a real that envy, jealousy, sort of, I can do it too, why aren't I up there, sort of thing. So I found another teacher. He was one of the guys in this orchestra that I was watching, and he was great, really good teacher. And quite quickly he said, why don't you get back into performing? And so I did, the first job I did was a month with his orchestra, which is one of the orchestras here in Madrid, doing Rigoletto, which was fun, except, and this, all of this, the reason I'm going off on these tangents is because it just all took me to where I am today. But I remember in that performance, one of the performances, in the pit playing, and up on stage there was this tenor, and then someone in the audience shouting, I'll say it in Spanish, but although I'm trying to say, he said, someone shouted, el tenor es malísimo. So the tenor is terrible. And I remember trembling in the pit and just thinking, how can anyone come back from that? How can if it had been me, I'd have run crying off the stage and you'd never see me again. I think it was amazing. And I just, I think in that moment, I just thought, oh my God, us musicians, singers, instrumentalists, and stage performers are the bravest people on earth at times. It's not physical danger, but it feels like physical danger.
Of course it does. It's all those same stress hormones, like we're being chased by tigers or yelled at by hecklers. Like, it's all the same. Totally. And that kind of, I now, my work now, and I'll explain, is, a lot goes into like visibility and I'm not good enough and all these different things. So, so that was thank God it wasn't directed at me, otherwise I might have gone away again. But so I then got back into the violin. There was a happy day when I burnt all my English teaching books. So that was, I love teaching. Don't get me wrong. And for many years, actually, I enjoyed teaching English. It was a kind of blessed relief, because I can speak English. I'm really good at speaking English. So I did have to learn how to teach it, though. And then, but getting back into the violin was really, really satisfying, until I started trying to make a living. And the money thing really loomed large. And so I kind of channeled into more teaching. And what it is with teaching, your studio
I was, in fact, working at an English school here, but as a peripatetic violin teacher. And at the height of my success there, I had 60 students. Don't know how I was squeezing them in, you know, it's like in every moment of every day.
Cranny.
It was ridiculous. It was just crazy. But I mean, it was great for a while, and then it just burnt me out. And that was the point where I discovered EFT. So
that is fascinating.
Now.
And like, actually, so I'm bouncing ahead just a little bit, but that's so parallel to my own feeling of burnout. When like suddenly it was the students were too much, the time was too much, the commitment was too much, because when you teach, you just pour so much energy out. And even if they're little tiny short lessons, you give them every single thing you have, and then on a dime you turn and try to create new energy for the next person and the next person and the next person.
Yeah, and it was absolutely like that. You know, the end of every day, you know, I would be absolutely wiped out. And I have a lot of energy, but, you know, and every day starting again, right, today, you know, and then by the end of the day, we're completely worn out again. And it was, I must read you, I afterwards, after I studied, learned EFT and everything and started using it, I wrote a book, as you know, and the first line, I must just read you the first line of the book. It's just... so part 1, the introduction, it says, "Oh my God, I've got to get out of here or I'm going to end up killing one of these 4-year-olds." That's how it starts. And I remember writing that and thinking that was how it felt. You know, I did get out of there. I didn't kill any of them. I didn't even hit any of them, which I shouldn't say that, but yeah, but it was... touch and go at times, you know.
So totally, yes. So many of us, I think, can relate to this feeling. Like, you've gotten yourself back into the violin and you're performing, but you're also teaching, and like, that's the way you build your portfolio career. So the money is coming in
at the weekends.
Sure, everything's working, but it's not actually working. Not working for you. So what then you said EFT comes in. How does EFT
I started cutting down, but I had no, that came actually, no. So EFT, all right, maybe I should stop just saying EFT and explain what it is. That might be a good moment. Okay, so basically EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. It's a healing, an energy healing modality. Basically, it's using acupressure points. So the same ones which are used in acupuncture, for example. So it's based on traditional Chinese medicine and the system of energy pathways or meridians. Okay. And this used to be, I mean, obviously back in China, it's been around for 5,000 years, but it's only recently started to be accepted by Western medicine, that there are these energy pathways. They've now actually got... not machines, what do you call them, you know, instruments fine enough to be able to see that these actually exist. And so what we do we basically tap on these different points on our face and on our body. So this is where it gets, you know, when you start working with people, it's interesting, you know, some people go, oh, that's weird, looks weird, because you're basically, and this is kind of strange doing it on a podcast, but you know, you're tapping on different points at the same time you're tapping, you're talking about what's bothering you, what is upsetting you. And it can be well, you know, for musicians there is so much. Well, looking at what I've already talked about, it could be those beliefs, you know, I'm not good enough. It can be, or, you know, I'll never make it, or there aren't enough jobs out there, I'll never make money, all these kind of beliefs. It can also be absolutely nerves, performance nerves and everything, because what is happening as we're tapping on these points is that we're bringing down stress hormones, especially cortisol. And they've actually done a lot of studies now, and they've seen that it brings down cortisol by as much as about 24%, which apparently is huge. And it basically is rewiring our fight or flight reaction. So this, you're about to go up on stage, your heart's beating, you're bow starts shaking for a violinist, you're trembling, your hands are sticky, your palms are sweaty. All of these are, as you know, Janet, I'm sure everyone knows, are part of the fight or flight reaction. There's that fear. And so tapping just goes directly. We start talking about it. We don't avoid the issue. We see what's there. We go straight for it. And as we're tapping and talking out loud, as I say, we're bringing down the stress hormone. And there's something very effective as well of actually saying out loud what you're feeling. So right now, for example, right before we came on this call, I was working with a client, and she's been feeling. We were doing a mock audition, and so I said to her, "Okay, you." In fact, even before she started playing, I said to her, "All right, how much anxiety is there?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm feeling anxious right now. I'm about to start playing for you." And so talking about where she was feeling it, her heart was beating. We use a scale very often, scale of 1 to 10. So 1 is no anxiety at all. 10 is freaking out completely. Okay, so you're at a 6. And then we start tapping. We start going around the points. And speaking out loud all this anxiety. I'm really nervous right now. So really pinpointing exactly what is going on. So, and it happens over and over again that when we talk about it and tap, afterwards, the numbers very often come down, sometimes not. Sometimes they shift to, I was feeling sadness, now I'm angry. Or, oh, I suddenly remembered this memory. And so other things come up. But very often there's this sense of almost distancing yourself from what's going on. And it's giving your brain new messages. Basically, it's safe. I'm safe now. It's okay to feel these things. And I can bring down the physical feelings, but also bring down the emotions connected and the triggers in there. So that was a long, sorry.
No, but that's fantastic. So like, and I would love to do a little short tapping round with you so that we can show the listeners what goes on here. But to reiterate, you're tapping on these acupressure points.
Absolutely.
And you're speaking out the negative emotions that you're feeling so that they come to the fore, so that they can sort of move around. And this is exactly the thing that I've experienced when I've worked with you as your client in numerous situations. It feels very woo, it feels very weird, and it also works.
I know it is. Yeah, I mean, I find it hard now to connect to that woo-woo side of it because I'm so used to it now. But having said that, I still do have moments of, really? Is that person just saying they feel better? And then, no, they're not. You can feel their energy has shifted, and so, yes, it does create change. And the other thing about it is it creates very lasting change. One thing it's used for in the States, it's now become approved for example, by the American Veterans Association for use with PTSD, because post-traumatic stress disorder, because that is notoriously difficult to treat. And they've seen a lot that working with veterans, for example, and talking about it helps to talk things through, but then in fact it comes right back, all the flashbacks, all the different kind of trauma that's in, because it gets held in the body. And with this system as well, it's also recognizing energy, and that is something which is missing for me. I love traditional Western medicine. I would not be without it. We'll take a paracetamol, and absolutely, yes, good God. But I have my vaccination and things like that. But for me, it's missing the energy part. And it's so funny. When I started working with musicians, I hadn't thought so hard about how in tune musicians are with energy and with doing these kind of things, how in tune they are with their bodies. Because one thing we do, as well as talking about emotions, we really go inside. We close your eyes and you sort of say, okay, this anxiety, where are you feeling in your body? And I love this, that, you know, musicians are so aware of their bodies. I mean, this is our training. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're so used to, and our emotions, you know, we're constantly having to conjure up, what am I feeling with this music? So it really helps for this. So, yeah, we talk about emotions, we talk about memories as well. So things, you know, come back. Obviously, we're talking about stage fright, for example, or audition performance anxiety. Then there can be definitely specific auditions I have failed by Jenny Clift and things, or whoever it is. But it's also, you know, it can be a memory of, I remember tapping with one woman, we were talking about showing up, and actually it was showing up on Facebook, to use social media to promote her. She's composing, and we talked about it, and up comes this memory of her literally, I mean, it sounds crazy, but when she was about 7 years old at school, going up to the blackboard, and then the teacher, I think she wrote something on the blackboard, she spelt something wrong, and the teacher made fun of her and all the class laughed, you know, all this, which probably in the moment was fairly insignificant, but in her mind, and this was like 50 years on, that was a huge thing. And so showing up on social media, you know, was like, oh, it brings back all those feelings, even if the memory wasn't clear until we started even tapping about it. But, you know, there's that fear. So often there's the subconscious stuff which is stopping us, you know. So yeah, so yeah, so it's effective, and it's quick as well. That's the other thing. Very often I'm kind of 10 minutes into a session, my client is bawling their eyes out, but it's great, you know, it's very cathartic, and it's going there in order to release it and process and move through. So, you know, we don't have to spend years and years and years working through things, you know. Yeah.
Right. It's pretty magical in that way. And is that how, when you first discovered it, like within your own life, when you first discovered it, how did that help you right away? Where were you? Yeah. How did you use it to like pull you out of this place of burnout and like not good enough? And
yeah, I mean, it was funny you're saying magical, because I found it, you know, and probably the most woo-woo part of YouTube, it was all about, I don't know if you've read anything, Abraham Hicks and that kind of stuff, which is the law of attraction and all these different things. So I was reading a lot about that then, and very into it. But then I saw this video, which was a guy, an English guy, in fact, using EFT and using it to tap into the vortex. And I remember, wow, my mind was blown. It was amazing. But for me, what was most exciting about this technique, and what really attracted me to it, was because I've been doing a lot of positive affirmations, and they just were not working for me, because I had so much kickback. You know, I would sort of say, I'm a performing violinist making 10,000 euros a month, sort of thing, and then thinking, yeah, right, in your dreams, and you'll never do that, and all the back chat in one's head. So with EFT, it was, even though, and I'll explain that, even though I'm not making barely any money, and I can barely keep make ends meet with performing, I love and accept myself completely. And that's the system, we say. And then you go around the point saying, I'm not making any money. It's impossible to make money in this profession. There is no money. There's nothing available. And so you say all these things that you're thinking, they don't even have to be true, but that's what is my reality in this moment. And so we go around.
Not the actual truth, but real in your head right now. And you say it.
Absolutely. And it feels like the truth, doesn't it? But then,
Mm-hmm.
but having said that, there are people who are making money. And then immediately my mind goes, they're few and far between. But then, okay, so I tap on that, even though it feels like hardly anyone can make money. And, so that, and I hate that. I want to perform. I don't want to teach all my life, all these kind of things. So you're speaking out your truth and acknowledging it. And for me, again, another thing which is so powerful about this is that we don't often allow ourselves to say these things out loud. There's a kind of almost like we're going to get jinxed if we say things like that, or we're just complaining and moaning and being a victim. All of these things don't feel fun. So
there's like unspoken rules about that. Like you need to be sweetness and light a lot more often, and like smile and like push the emotions down. Let's not talk about those things.
Absolutely. And I think especially, now I think the conversation among musicians and stage performers is opening up this idea that, yeah, you know what, I'm not the only one who's terrified before. I mean, I think most people will admit to nerves before auditions, but you don't talk about it much because it kind of makes you look unprofessional or weak, or you're leading with that idea of I'm not good enough, aren't you? Or I'm whereas, and we're all feeling it, or most of us. I'm sure there are the odd, two people out there who don't. Having said that, auditions is a whole other game. But for concerts and everything, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to stop feeling nerves. And with tapping and everything, I just decided not to feel nerves anymore. And so, yeah, having been told all my life, you have to feel nervous. If you're not nervous, you're kind of not focusing or taking it, So anyway.
Oh, that's really interesting. So
other conversation. Yeah.
It is a whole other conversation, but it's really interesting actually, because as a person who's not like naturally that nervous performing myself, but I have seen so many of my students, so many of my clients with just like debilitating performance nerves.
It is debilitating.
And it's really hard. And to think that this simple technique that you can do, like you can be trained by Jenny, you can work with Jenny, but you can also do this by yourself.
You absolutely can. It is, it's at your fingertips, literally,
It's amazing. Amazing.
And so I always say to musicians, if you've learned an instrument, I mean, this is a piece of cake. This is so simple. The only thing people sometimes say to me is, I don't know what to say. But even that, you can get around it. It's not actually, it's just getting used to it and how it kind of works. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you take us through like a little bit of sample tapping around a topic like this?
Yeah, let's do it. Let me tell you first, and I'll explain them. And what I can do is share with you, Jenna, a photo of the tapping points that we're going to use. And because
that'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, brilliant. And so what we'll be doing is we'll just have a tiny talk first, and then I will be saying things out loud. We're both tapping. So I'm tapping on me, you're tapping on you. And in fact, all my work I do with clients, it's all online. So it's hands-on, but hands on yourself. So it's very politically correct. There's no but it's also, it's empowering, because then you can go away and keep on tapping and doing it yourself, so it's not that you need to be always working with someone. And so we're tapping on these different points that I'm about to tell you, and I will say a sentence, you repeat it to me, and then we go around we take a before and after scale and just see what happens. All right. So the points I'll just explain. The first point that we're going to be starting on is the side of the hand. So imagine if you were going to hit a block or something with like a karate chop. So it's kind of hi-ya, exactly. And so the side, so you're going to be tapping with one hand on the other side of the other hand, and it doesn't matter which one you use. I usually use my dominant hand on the other hand, but you can switch it up. And those are the first points. All right. So quite near the base of that little finger. And we'll be tapping there. And we start here with what we call, this is the most, if you want, ritualistic or whatever part, or formalistic is a better say. It sounds like we're going to some cult, which we're not. And we start with even though, and we have our issues. So even though I feel all these nerves, for example, or even though I'm so anxious, even though I'm terrified of that high C, I've tapped with so many people on specific, even though I'm terrified of bar 81. And this is what's so great. You can really customize this. And then you add to that a positive phrase. And it could be, for example, I love and accept myself completely. Okay. If I was working with a veteran, I would probably say I'm safe right now. Maybe ask and say I love and accept myself completely is a stretch, or not. It depends on the person. But there's basically it's putting together the negative with this positive phrase. We're already training our brain to think, you know what? I'm human, even though I yelled at my daughter this morning, I love and accept myself completely. Even though I failed that audition, I love and honor myself completely. So it's for me, it's the quickest way to self-love and self-acceptance that you can possibly imagine. And then question.
Oh, I was just going to say that section of the tapping exercise, like, it always brings emotion up for me. There's something about just saying out loud, I love and accept myself completely, that like chokes me up every time, because we're not allowed to say that.
And we're not trained to say it anyway. No.
We're not trained to say it, right, in any sort of normalized way, and there's something so beautiful about it. So
there is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
jump in.
No, and it's I was just talking to someone earlier today as well, and we were tapping this she's been in a lot of pain, and she said that even she wasn't tapping in physical pain. She's been going through something, and she said, but even at the worst bits of the pain, and we worked together for quite a long time now, so this comes naturally. She was saying, even though I feel all this pain, I love and accept myself completely. And not even with the tapping, but just saying that. And just, it's really soothing and really, so much compassion in there right from the get-go. So it's incredibly powerful. I love this part of it. So we say that 3 times, then we start off around the point. So the first point's going to be the inside of the eyebrow. So it's not the third eye, it's kind of either side, inside of your eyebrow. Okay. Then the next point is the side of the eye, kind of the temple there. And we tap there as we're speaking, we're tapping. So you can hear me tapping.
And it's like pretty quick. It's like tap 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 as you're speaking.
I don't know, it just kind of does itself naturally, and as you're saying, not saying word. And people say, how hard do I have to tap? And I think that's just a personal choice. What you're doing is stimulating the acupressure points, and you're stimulating these energy channels. So whatever feels right to you. I'm quite vigorous. That's just who I am. But some people tap very lightly, with kind of very delicately, and I go, ooh, but that's fine, so it just depends how it feels. The next one is under the eye. So right on the bone, under the pupil. And you can feel that bone there. The next one's under the nose. So right between the top lip and the nose. And then, okay, so let me just recap. We started on the side of the hand, then the inside of the eyebrow, the side of the eye, under the eye, right on the bone there, under the nose. Then we do under the mouth, so the cleft of the chin.
Yep.
The next point is the collarbone point. So if you've gone in from, this kind of knot in your throat, and you go down and out, so just below the ends, the inner ends of the collarbone, there's like a dent there, and we're going to be tapping there on that dent. Then we go under the arm. It's about 4 inches below the armpit. And you may feel a sensitive spot. And if you do, you tap there. That's the bit which looks a bit weird in public. I do quite a lot of tapping when I'm walking around here in Madrid, and I'm fairly relaxed about it now. I sort of think, well, by the time I've moved to another point, I'll have moved on. But, that can be a bit indiscreet, but you just do it gently. And then the top of the head, right in the center of the top of the head. There may be another sensitive spot there. So you tap there. That's what we call one round of tapping.
Got it.
Okay. And we do several, and we sort of use the words that we've been talking about, and then we stop, do a check-in, and see where it takes us. And then, maybe we've come down from an 8 to a 6. So then we tap a little bit more. Okay, what's coming up for you? And it may be a memory. So even though I remember, that audition, whatever it is, and keep on going like that. So, so that's the basic technique. As you can see, it's not complicated. Should we give it a whirl?
Let's give it a whirl.
All right. So, Janet, just let me know, what do you think might be most useful right now? Just as and we'll just do a short one, but something.
Can we do a little one? Like I feel like everyone can relate to this. I had a performance yesterday.
Okay.
It was a solo recital. I liked most of it a ton, and there were things that happened that I would like back. Right? Like, it's never perfect.
Perfect.
And I'm not even a perfectionist, but you want it to be better.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So there's just an element of disappointment about like not actually being as great as I want to be.
Oh God. All right. Yeah. That is so good. Yeah. Okay. And I'm just scribbling this down. And the reason I write it down, and when I'm with my clients, I write everything down. I have reams and reams. Because one thing I love about this technique as well is that it is, you'll see, it's using your words. It's very client-centered or people-centered. A couple of questions. If you just close your eyes a second, and everyone, I really encourage you to do this as well at home. Just think about a recent performance or something you put out there. In some way, you were making yourself visible. You were taking those risks that we all do. And there are things which were not perfect. And although your logical, rational self will say, it's okay, other people, you're not so logical, you're more, that other emotional part of you is saying, oh, I wish I hadn't missed that note, or I wish it had been better, or I feel so disappointed. And just feel into your body. And I'd love you to do this, Janet, and just that disappointment, or maybe there's anger towards yourself or sadness. It's not better, I'm not perfect. Just see if you can locate that sensation or that emotion in your body.
Yeah, I've got that in like the middle of my chest.
Okay. And what physical sensation is it?
It's tightness a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe a little heaviness.
Okay, brilliant. And how, if you could rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, that disappointment, that tightness in your chest, what would you give it? Thinking about this performance yesterday.
Maybe a 5 or a 6.
Okay, cool. All right. Is there anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's good.
Let's do it. And we'll just do a little bit so people can see. And again, as I this first time around, I'll try and remember, I'll say the names of the points. Just repeat after me. You know the score, Janet. And as well at home, I hope you've rated that on a, scale of 1 to 10, and then see how you feel right after we've done this tapping. Okay. Yeah. Give me a second. All right, let's go with this. So starting on the side of the hand, and we're going to be saying this 3 times, this first part. Even though it wasn't perfect.
Even though it wasn't perfect.
I love and accept myself completely.
I love and accept myself completely.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can be hard to say, but stick with me. All right. Even though it wasn't perfect.
Even though it wasn't perfect.
Mm-hmm. I love and honor myself completely.
I love and honor myself completely.
Even though it wasn't perfect.
Even though it wasn't perfect.
And I really wanted it to be perfect.
And I really wanted it to be perfect.
because I worked so hard.
Because I worked so hard.
And I really wanted to enjoy it.
I wanted to enjoy it.
And I wanted to give a perfect performance.
I wanted to give a perfect performance.
And I can't help feeling disappointed.
And I can't help feeling disappointed.
Because it wasn't perfect.
Because it wasn't perfect.
And I deeply and completely.
And I deeply and completely.
Love, honor, and accept myself.
Love, honor, and accept myself.
And just for information, that was all on the side of the hand, right? Now we're going to start moving off around the point. So starting on the inside of the eyebrow, it wasn't perfect.
It wasn't perfect.
Side of the eye, I wasn't perfect.
I wasn't perfect.
Under the eye, and I'm so disappointed in myself.
And I'm so disappointed in myself.
Under the nose, all this disappointment I'm feeling.
All this disappointment I'm feeling.
Under the mouth, this tightness in the middle of my chest.
This tightness in the middle of my chest.
The collarbone, I'm feeling this disappointment.
I'm feeling this disappointment.
Under the arm, and maybe other things too.
And maybe other things too.
Top of the head, all this embarrassment.
All this embarrassment.
Eyebrow point, all this sadness.
All this sadness.
Side of the eye, maybe I'm frustrated with myself.
Frustrated with myself.
Yeah, under the eye, it should have been better.
It should have been better.
Under the nose, it should have been perfect.
It should have been perfect.
Under the mouth, I compare myself to other people.
I compare myself to other people.
Collarbone, they can do it.
They can do this.
Under the arm, all this frustration I'm feeling.
All this frustration I'm feeling.
Top of the head, and all this disappointment.
And all this disappointment.
All right, just take a break and take a breath. Okay, and that was just short, but just feel into your body, feel into that, this tightness in your chest, and even say out loud, I'm so disappointed.
So disappointed.
And just tell me, Jenna, if that's shifted at all, if anything else came up. Let me know.
I mean, it was interesting, actually, because I know I was the one who brought in the word perfect, but I don't really resonate with the word perfect.
Okay.
In my own playing.
Yes.
And that said, yes, I definitely did feel a shift. And there's and I feel like it's much easier for me to just let go of the things that were not, in fact, perfect.
Cool.
In yesterday's performance.
Yeah.
It feels like that weight is lifted.
Good. Nice. And, just to say, and, that was very short, and which is not my usual style. I normally go on, as you well know. But, what we would then do is go, all right, where are you feeling now? And it might be, it was a 5 or 6. You might say, okay, now it's a 4. Okay, so what's still in the 4? And maybe that's, there was maybe a specific moment, or maybe I remember back at college, my professor, or at school, my teacher saying, or getting angry because I made a mistake, or whatever comes up with. Then we go with that, and we start digging around underneath and healing, if you like, what triggers our emotions and everything. And basically the aim is to get it down to, a 2 or below, whatever we're feeling. And one thing which is very wonderful about this technique is, and this has been shown, for example, with doing studies with veterans. I'm going back to the PTSD thing, that, they've done these studies, cleared the trauma and the post-traumatic stress disorder, and then 6 months later gone back to them and said, now when you think about that memory, what comes up? And it's still gone. It doesn't come back. And I find this a lot with clients. We clear something, or with people I tap with, we clear something, and then maybe something else comes up, and that's fine. We can carry on. It's kind of like clearing the woods, clearing, knocking down the different things. You don't have to clear everything, but you do get to a kind of tipping point where, maybe it's the lack of confidence or the fear or something. You do move to a point, and I really saw this in my own career. As I started with this YouTube video, then I found a tapping coach, and I worked with him for 5 years. Mainly, someone once said to me, "Oh my God, were you that screwed up?" So, no, I wasn't. It was just that I just love this technique, and I used it for my music and and my violin, and the different things. I've got a list here of the different things that it's useful for performers. Definitely what we talked about: nerves and audition preparation and stage fright and anxiety, and these limiting beliefs, both yourselves and the world around you, these ideas that there aren't enough gigs to go around, there's not, all the rest of it. And they're the kind of beliefs that you go, well, that's true, but excuse me, it's true, sort of thing. But we can create our own reality by shifting our thoughts. Yeah. But there's also,
I think that's, sorry, I'm gonna
please do
slide in here for a sec, because what I love about, there are so many things I love about working with you, but one is that you so deeply understand, like from a musician and a performer's perspective, what it is that's going on. But I also love that you are so clear from the perspective of a business owner, of like a musician, because a musician who's working is in business for themselves, even if they don't think about it, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I guess I know you as, I know you primarily as a tapping coach, as an EFT coach. So my question is, at what point did you go from using this technique to improve your own life and your own musical life, to thinking, oh, I could use this to help other people. I could also make money doing this. Like, what was that transition like for you? Because that feels like a big leap.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like, well, it kind of was. There was something that happened, but basically I was using this. I was doing more than I had ever done, because I would go to an EFT session with my coach, and he would say, why don't you make a CD? I had a violin and guitar duo at the time, and we were doing a lot of concerts, and my coach said, why don't you have a CD? And I went, oh, you must be kidding, me, a CD.
That's really? For real musicians.
Exactly. And, there are so many people who are so brilliant out there, blah, blah, blah. And we tapped on it, and we ended up making 2 CDs, and they're not bestsellers, but they're CDs. They've got nice music on them. The people who've heard them enjoy listening to them. I had to do some tapping on, even though there was, it wasn't perfect, and that's okay. So I was using it and creating huge changes in my own. I gradually left all the teaching, day by day, letting it go. And that took a lot of tapping on, even though I can't bear to leave these poor children without a violin teacher, sort of thing. And there were other violin teachers. It was fine. But and then doing much more performing. And then right before COVID, the last job, a big, if you like, which was my job, was I was working in a musical, in fact, here in Madrid. And it was a Spanish musical, and there were 2 seasons. We did 2 seasons, and I loved it. And I started, I think, there were several things. I started using EFT with the actors first, actually. So what I'd done was I did 5 years working with my coach. Then I thought, I'm writing a book about this. It's been so amazing. So I wrote my book, and this woman who was helping me with my website said, oh, but you do know you've got to put something there and make some money out of this, because you won't make any money out of writing a book. And so I'll put that I can coach people. So I did this one session with one client. He'd read the book, and we did an hour-long session. He was a really nice guy, a yoga teacher actually in Israel. So we did this happening, and it was okay, I think. But I got to the end of it. I didn't ruin his life. And I thought, I need some training in this. So I did a couple of certifications. And then I started working with non-musicians, and then I realized, yeah, it would be a good idea to start working with musicians, because I understand them, they understand me and everything. And so it was that nudge from that other woman saying, you've got to make some money out of this. And I was like, okay, and that was scary. And then, terrifying. Yes.
Right. I bet that was really scary. I love hearing that because I didn't realize this part of your story, that the next thing after solving your own, musical woes was the creative urge to create a book. And then from there, the nudge to like do something with it.
Yeah.
And was that a really scary step, actually, stepping from being a creator from being an artist and a writer and a violinist to being someone who like takes money
that was a big reason why I didn't start working with musicians. There were several reasons, but I think the biggest one was that, oh my God, if I'm doing this, they'll think I'm not a violinist anymore. And so it was huge and and also I thought, oh, and they won't be into this kind of woo-woo crap or something that is not just directly related to the instrument. Of course it is, but, and so I had all these preconceptions and all these ideas about, oh, and they won't be able to afford it anyway. But, they are all just ideas in my head, which were stopping me. And so working through those. And then I discovered when I did start, and this is when I met you, wasn't it, Jen, at the beginning of 2020, and I started meeting a whole bunch of musicians, and I was lucky enough to have a business coach, Jennifer Rosenfeld, who is a musician too. She's a composer, and she loves this kind of energy stuff, and she had already heard of tapping and use it. So and then the people around her, it was just like, I realized, oh my God, yes, musicians need this stuff and love it as well and find it helpful. Not everyone, but that's like saying that, that playing the violin or having kids is not for everyone. So
exactly. I mean, there wouldn't. For some reason, I suddenly flashed to like breakfast cereal and the aisle in the grocery store that has 4,000 different kinds of breakfast cereal. Everyone eats something. No one likes everything, and you can offer something to the people who want it. That is beautiful. I love hearing this story that was very much just evolved along the way. You evolved from being a musician to like feeling like a failed musician, to being a musician who tapped for herself, to being an author, to being a person who reached out and coached actors and singers and musicians. And it's really inspiring to hear this story from like just a person. Like you're brilliant and wonderful at what you do, but you haven't always been.
No. And no, and it's I think it's like you, Jenna. And I think that the other thing is allowing oneself to recognize that, I do love the violin, and there's been times in my career, not so much now, but that I was obsessed with the violin. It was all I wanted to do, and just play and nerd around and solve problems. For me, that's what it was all about, and play music. But I've been lucky enough to find this, which I, as you can tell, I absolutely love as well. And I love writing too. So I think that's the other thing, which has been such a kind of relief, is realizing, no, I'm not alone in that. There are lots of musicians who allow themselves more than just straight on their instrument, and that was such a breath of fresh air.
Yes. I think that's enormous. If you if there's somebody out there right now who's listening, who has like a secret woo hobby, or something that they've been thinking about and obsessing about besides their instrument, like, do you have advice for that person? What would you tell that person?
Well, first of all, it's, I would just say it is allow yourself to be open to coming clean with that as well, because you'll be pleasantly surprised that in fact, this kind of the belief that we have is not true, that there's so many people who want, and also I really believe that if you are drawn to something, there is a purpose behind it, that there's going to be a reason why you are, it's always, for me, it's like with the violin, but it was like this with EFT as well. If it keeps on coming back to you and it doesn't let you alone, maybe there's a reason for that, and I would definitely, in my own case, I did 2 certifications and got training in how to become a coach and everything. That was so helpful, mainly for my own self-confidence. Well, no, but also for my clients, so, but, and everything about that, learning how to run a business. Definitely business coaching has been vital as well, because for a long time, I had this total imposter syndrome as, I'm not a businesswoman, I have no hope, and so that's been a learning curve. But I would just say, you can, and maybe it's not have it all at the same time, but you can definitely, we talked about this as well, Janet, I also have children. I have 3 daughters. They're quite grown up now, but they're still fairly time consuming. I spend they're in my mind a lot of the time. And of course, when they were little, they were very much. And so there's been times in my life, the first year I had twins. So I had an older daughter and then twins. That first year I took a year off teaching. I mean, I was able to, luckily. And again, it would have been too much. But, so there's been times when it was more about the kids or it's more about the violin. Now I would definitely say for me, it's more about EFT. But I'm playing. I've got a concert next week and, it's possible. Yeah, it's
yes. Just keeping things in balance and figuring out what that means for you is the game.
Yeah, it is.
Pursuing the things that make you feel really excited and then figuring out how to keep them in balance. Oh my gosh, Jenny, it's been such a treat to talk with you here today. Thank you so much. Can I just ask, where can people find you, and how can people connect with you and like maybe even work with you? Where do you want me to send people?
Probably, well, my email, if you know my name, it's easy. My email is jenny@jennyclift.com. If you Google, well, on Facebook,
I can put links in the show notes.
Links my website is abetterlifetapping.com, but that comes up if you put my name, Jenny Clift, EFT Tapping or something, that comes up. So that's the main thing. And I have, I was going to say, I have a kind of an email list, if you like, of musicians and stage performers, and then a separate singers list, because I've worked with so many singers as well. And so I send out resources and points of view and perspectives and tapping stuff, on a weekly. I send one out once a week. So that's a good way of being in touch with me as well, so.
Yes, I love your emails, Jenny. They're terrific. So yes, I'll make sure that I've got that link in the show notes.
Thanks, that's brilliant. Yeah. But
of course. Jenny, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been so good to talk. And I knew this would be fun, Janet, because you're so wonderful to talk to. And, there's this feeling you really personify this idea of someone who's doing lots of different things, but really showing up creatively in everything you do, and, doing it in such a joyful, happiest way. I have your book right behind me.
Oh my gosh, I see it. I see
music
it on the screen.
You see it? Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
So you're an inspiration. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe on your app of choice and leave a review too. It really helps us. Don't forget to check out Fawns if your own teaching or service-based business needs better systems. You can use the link in the show notes for a free 2-week trial. Our theme music was composed by Dream Vance. You can hear his first album, Re-Entry, on Spotify and Apple Music, and follow him there for more innovative synthwave music. You can find me at janetingle.com, which is also where you can pick up a copy of the Happiest Musician book. Reach out to me with thoughts or questions about the podcast, or apply for a free clarity call to explore your own portfolio career and thriving musical life. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.